Hello everyone, welcome to the Stealing Insight YouTube channel. Today we'll be talking about the topic, the mastering of Sumif, Averageif and Countif for better data analysis. The objective of this study is to understand how to use the Sumif, the Averageif and the Countif functions in Excel in order to perform conditional calculations in both simple and large data. So before we move on, we want to appreciate our subscribers. We appreciate you so much for keeping up with us. And for our returning viewers and our new viewers, we appreciate and we applaud you so much for keeping up with us and for learning and for allowing us to be of impact to you. Now, moving forward, the Sumif function, as we will have it, is basically two things, sum and if. The sum means total. The if there is a conditional statement. So that's why it is actually the total of a particular set of data provided a condition is met. So for us to find anything in terms of calculation in Excel is going to be equality sign, then the formula is the sum if. Now Sumif, Averageif and Countif was introduced on Excel in 2007, and it's actually meant to fulfill just a condition. In higher part of Excel from 2019 till date, and Excel 365, it has been upgraded to some ifs with a S in order to give access to more conditions. But for some if is limited to just one condition. Now, you observe that on this sum if that we've written here, we're having three things: the range, the criteria, and the sum range. So the range here is going to talk about the range of cells you want to apply the conditions to. So this is the range of cells we want to apply our conditions to. So what do we actually want to do? We want to check for the total sales of electronics in this set of data. So the range of cell is under the categories of the cells that we're picking out. Then you see after the range, the next thing is comma, comma. Then the criteria is what are we looking for in this range of cell? We are looking for electronics. So if we are looking for electronics, that's the criteria. Then we'll separate it with a comma. Then the sum range. The sum range means the range of data that we want to use to consider that. Then you put your enter key. This gives us 0, so something is wrong with our data. So let's check it. Sum if, this is the range of cell. What we are looking for there is electronics. So the reason we are having 0 is because we typed electronic, not electronics. So by the time we change it to electronics, it gives us the actual figure we need. So you need to be conscious of the data that is being provided. So the sum if is 7,700. And if you want to get that, look at this. Let's just highlight the data that we just worked on in order for us to be able to do just manual calculation to confirm what electronic figure are. So now, if you pick on these three data and you look at this bottom, you get the sum to be 7,700, the average to be 2,566, then the number of counts to be 3, which is the similar thing that we're trying to do here. Just highlighting it gave us this figure at the bottom here, which you can always access. But we are doing this for the small data, which we'll be applying for the large data, the large set of data. But before we get there, let's move on if we are going to be getting this average and the likes. Now for the Averageif is also having the same thing, that we should find the average of the range. The range is also here, then separated by comma. The criteria we are also looking for, that we are looking for the average of, is also on electronics. Then the average of the sales is what we are looking for. Then you close the bracket. So you realize that when we did this, it gave us this value, and this is the average. If you bring it out more, you get what is down there. But let's just have it as 2 decimal place. Now the count if is still similar to this. Count if the range is all of this. Then what is the criteria we are counting for? We're also counting for electronics. Then you close the bracket. So it's 3, just the way it was 3 down there. So with this, you can get the value. Now, you may not really appreciate it for this, but let's go to the large data in order for you to see that you can't just click on it one after the other like the other time. So look at this data. It's actually somewhat a robust data. It's having 500 data down. Look at downward, 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 down, 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 down. So by the time you are being asked to do some of those things that we've just done on that small data, you realize the importance of this formula on each of these data. So let's quickly run through this formula. Now look at the questions that has been created on the right hand side of this data. Now the first question says calculate the total sales for the product smartphone across all regions. Now it's already told us that the total sales already give us an hint that is talking about sum. Now, how will you know whether you're now going to be using sum or something else? So you're going to be using sum if, because it has been stated that the total sales for the product smartphone, not for the products, but for the product smartphone. So since it's for the product smartphone, it means there is already a condition there. And for this condition, you need to go to the smartphone. You need to highlight all of these. Highlight it down. Now, we can just highlight this, and with this, we already have our range of the cell. So then we can have it here, which is this A2 to A501. I intentionally highlighted it down so that we'll see the limits of the what we are looking out for, but it's not compulsory you do that. There are shortcuts to that which I will be using later. Now the next thing is for the criteria smartphone. Criteria smartphone. Now, after the criteria smartphone across all region, and it's the total sales. So the sum range is this. Then the sum range that is this is just going to give us sales, which is D2. So from D2 to D501, which is the end of the data. Then you close the bracket, then you put your enter. So this shows that the total sales for product smartphone across our region is 171,808. Now the next thing is the total sales of electronics category in the data set. The total sale of electronics categories. You will check that electronic categories is different from the product, so we are talking about some if as well. Now, what's the data range? We are talking about this, which is the category, which is B501. Then what I'm looking for, electronics is the criteria. Then the range is also on the data sale, which is the D501. So this is giving us the total sales of electronic category in the data sets. The third question says that the total revenue, total sum then of sales in the West. So the range is in the region, which is C2 and C501. Now, which criteria are we looking for in the region is West. And what's the range of what we are looking for in the West is the sales. And the sales 501. So this gives us the answer. Now the next thing is the total discounts given for tab, which is Sumif as well. The range is the product because it's talking about the product tab. It's talking about the product tab. So that's going to be A2 to A501. And what are we looking for? Tablets. In which sum range? It's talking about discount now. So discounts in this instance is the F2 to F501. So we already have the answer for all of the related questions to the sum if. Now the related question to the average if goes thus: the equality sign average if, because they are saying what is the average sales revenue for laptop product. Average sales revenue for laptop product. So we already know that what we are talking about here is the product. That's the first thing. A2 to A501. Now the product we are looking for is the laptop. Now the next thing after the laptop is talking about the average range, because it's talking about sales. The sales is also D501, and that gives us the answer. Now equality sign the average if for the average units sold for peripherals category. So we already know that this is going to be B2 because B2 speaks to B speaks to the category, then B2 is where the data starts from, and it ends at B501. B501, the criteria we are looking for is the peripheral, then the comma sign, then what we are looking for, the average units sold, is talking about the sales. The sales. So that's the average units sold for peripheral products. The next thing is also the average if, the average discounts that was given for the product sold in South region. So the range of what we are talking about now is the region, and in the region, the criteria we are considering is the South. Now, the average range is the product sold. So we have our answer there. Now, the average if for the first question says, what is the average sales revenue in quarter-3 quarters? So the average sales revenue in quarter-3 is what we are looking for now, meaning we are looking for the range to be in the quarter column, and that will give us this. The criteria we're looking for there is the Q3, then the comma, then the average range is also talking about the sales. Then you have this as your answer. Now moving forward, the How many times was the product printer sold in the data set? So we want to know the number of times the printer was sold at a glance. So this is going to be counts if. Counts if. Now the counts if is now going to be what's the range of the products. We already know it's going to be the A. This is under products where we have the printer and all other thing. So it's going to be the A2, so A501. Then we have this. After that, we have the printer as a criteria. We have the printer as a criteria, and we close the brackets. So it gives us 57 times the printer was sold according to the data set from all regions. Now, the next question is, count how many sales occur in the North region. So, how many sales occur in the North region? We also have the count if. So, in the North region, we already know we are talking about region. Then region, we're having this. In the North is the criteria. Then, the sales that occur in the North is what they are looking for. The count if, that gives us the total sales in the North region. So now, we want to know how many products were sold in quarter one. It's also count if, you open the bracket. Now, the range of the data in terms of the quarter is this to 501. So what we are looking out for there is Q1. Then you close the brackets. That's the answer. Now, for how many accessories categories were sold? So you also count if. Now, in terms of what is being requested here is asking based on the categories. So that's 501. Then accessories. So this is wrong because the spelling of accessories was not correct. So if you check these accessories, you have the answer to be this. So with this, you already have the details of what you want. Now, you will not really appreciate this except, or one of the way you appreciate this is that if this is an Excel that is already in the database with the boss in the office, and each time there is sales, or let's assume that this change from this to 1000 or 1034, you realize that there was a difference here, this peripheral, because it immediately gives us a figure there. Now, if we make this 5997, look at the peripheral. Please take notes. 2605, 2612. That's what is there now. You realize, and some other things are changing simultaneously, like the West. So if you have this formula at hand, any of the things that is being entered here, automatically you get the stock ready. Immediately you know what you have available, what is left. You have what is available and you know what is left, what you need to increase, things you need to work on and the like, just with this data. Now, remember from the beginning of this class, I told you that the sum if, the average if, the count if is just for one condition. However, when you are being requested with more than one condition, you need to go through a route. Though some ifs, average ifs, count ifs made it more simplified, but this class objective is limited to count if, average if, and the sum if. So we'll look for a way around in order to get our answers for each of these functions. So look at the combination of Sumif, Averageif and Countif function question. So in order for us to solve that question, you will need to create a new column. Now look at the way I'm creating a new column. I just click on insert. It's inserting 2. If I want to create 3, it's going to insert 3, but I'm okay for now. So for the first one, the question is, we should, for the combination of Sumif, Averageif and Countif. So the question goes thus, that we should calculate the total sales revenue generated for smartphone products in the East region. So the way it works is that it's telling us that there are 2 conditions that must be fulfilled. For us to fulfill those 2 conditions using the Sumif, we must try as much as possible to create a column for them each. So the first column we are going to be creating will now take us through memory lane. So I'm using this opportunity to refer you to the previous video on the conditional functions that we've done, logical functions of and, or, and not, and the combination of the conditional and the logical of if not, if and if or. In this case, 2 conditions must be met. Condition 1 is that the total sales generated for smartphone, and it's not just smartphone, it must be in the East region. So we are going to be using here our if and function. If and function to know those sales that were made in the East that were smartphone. So the first thing we are doing now is that we want to know if this and this are true, there should be a release of the sales in that region East. If any of them is false, then you should return 0. So if the first thing is, if the if is telling us the logical statements to use now. You are saying if this cell is equal to smartphone, and this cell, the region, is equal to East. So once those 2 conditions are met, then the logical test has been completed. That's when the bracket was closed. Now the value, if the value is true, you should release the sales amount. If the value is false, you should release 0. Then we'll close the bracket. So with this, we already have the total just at a glance. So the only figure that is being released here is when we're having smartphones that were sold in the East. Apart from that, it will be 0. Just clicking on this place, you can get the sum to be this, which is 47,852. But what we want to use is the Sumif, Countif, and the Averageif function. So how do you go about using the Sumif? You can just click here. Then the Sumif is that the range of the cell is this, A2 to H2 rather to H501, provided the figure is greater than 0. Then you close the bracket. So you can see the answer we've gotten, which is 47,852. Now the same thing applies for the average if. So for the average if, we're also going to use another column to also get these 2 conditions to be true. So if and, meaning if the product in A2 is equal to laptop, and for the region is in C, the region is C2 is equal to not. So the logical statements are already captured. So what will be the figure that will be released if true? The sales. Now, if not true, then that is 0. So with this, we will have it to be this. Then you put it up. Now, by the time you look down, you realize that at this point, where we have laptop and in the not, we have a value. It releases the sales value. So instead of you to just be looking around how to go about that, you can just pick it up as equality sign, average if, you open the bracket, the range of your cell is in I2 to I501. Then, what's the criteria? The criteria is that the value must be greater than 0. And you enter that's the average of the units. Now, for this third one, we're also talking about count how many electronics products were sold in quarter 4. Remember that for us to count the number of electronics that were sold in quarter 4, we can also use you can't just count if immediately because it's more than one condition. So first create a table from this table here. We use the if and function. For the if and function, then we have, what are we considering? If A2, why are we using A2? Because A2 is talking about the product. A2 is equal to electronics. Okay, it's not going to be A2, apologies, because that is not where electronic lies. Electronic lies under the categories. So if B2 equal to electronics, and G2 equal to quarter 4, then you close the bracket. So what should it release? It should release the sales. If not, it should release 0. No, it should not release sales. Apologies, that should be 1 because it's talking about the counts. So it should release 1. That is, one value was available to have both electronics and the quarter 4. And if not 0, then you close your bracket. Then you close your bracket and you click the enter key. So by the time you double click this, you have your value. You can see 1 here because it's electronics and quarter 4. Electronics and quarter 4. So by the time you are going to the formula, we are having the equality sign that counts if. Then you open the bracket, the J to J501. Then you are counting for anything that is greater than 0. So it's just 56. So this brings us to the end of the practice and the lesson. However, I have challenge questions for you. Kindly ensure to go through these questions. Provide your answers in the comment section. We would love you to engage with them as a means of just laying your hands upon, provided in one way or the other you may find yourself using an older version of Excel and you won't be able to use the sum ifs function, and this is all that will be available, just not to be cut out or to be stopped. You must not get stopped in your data analysis journey. Thank you for staying thus far. We appreciate you. We appreciate you once again. Please ensure to click the subscribe button and look out for our next class that will be more and far reaching than this. As you can observe that we are giving you a higher and a deeper dimension of all it entails in Microsoft Excel. Thank you for choosing and for spending your time with Distilling Insights. Distilling Insight appreciate and honor you. Bye bye.